Hi, my name is Doris, and this is Heart of Stitches. Welcome to returning viewers. Welcome to all new viewers. It's a podcast to talk about all things stitching, knitting, crocheting, sometimes embroidery. I've been doing stitching my whole life, and I just love it. And I want to share with anybody who wants to come in and be part of this community. I'm the mother of three children and three grandchildren, which I mention a lot. So I'm going to come out with that right off the bat. Um, I in the comments I had a complaint that the woman said I sounded like I was in a tunnel, and she's not wrong. So I am trying out a microphone, very high tech here. I'm going to move it. It's a yarn ball with a fork, a small microphone. So hopefully this will help. She also said that it sounded like I had wind chimes, which I don't. I think that it has been stitch markers and my metal needles clacking together. So I secured them with some hair ties or tucked them into the stitches. So hopefully that won't be a problem. And, let me know if it, the woman who did this, she said constructive criticism, and it is. She wasn't mean about it at all. Um, but hopefully this will help. What I am wearing is the Paloma sweater by East Bus Trico. I used Knitting for Olive, Ballerina. I've spoken about this sweater on two other podcasts, so I won't, belabor the point. Um, I used a size 7 needle, a 4.5 millimeter needle. It's a raglan turtleneck. I folded it down just I have a lot of chin going on here, and I'm in Florida, so I've been in a room with the fan over my head and waited till I was very cold to put this on. But at some point, I'm probably going to get too warm and have to take it off. But it's a raglan turtleneck with a sleeve detail that goes down the side, so that is a twisted rib, half twisted rib. You don't twist the pearls, and you do twist the knits. Um, I use the Jenny's stretchy bind off for the bottom and the sleeves, and it worked great. I had originally done a sewn bind off that it came out poorly, so I picked that out, which was horrible to do with the mohair and just that you sewed it, so it took a long time to pick it out. And I believe I untwisted the stitches while I was pulling it out. So on my sleeves, you can't really tell to the naked eye, anybody else, but I think it did change the stitches a little. But even for myself, after blocking, you can't see the difference. This sweater fit me perfectly before I blocked it. It's a little big now. There's a lot of ease here, and because I'm big already, I don't want to wear something with tons of extra ease. I'm perfectly satisfied with the sweater. It didn't grow so much that I can't stand it, but it is bigger and floppier than I probably would have in a perfect world done myself. So that I do swatch, but I don't wet block my swatches before I go ahead and do it. So maybe I need to start doing that, especially with some yarns. And maybe if I do it enough times, I'll be able to tell. Superwash, this happens to my knitting. Not superwash, this happens to my knitting. Um, but in this case, it grew quite a lot. Um, I think overall maybe 4 inches wider than I had. I think on the blocks it was 2 inches, so then double that. So that is something, I'm not new to knitting. I learned as a child, but I am new to knitting anything that counts. Like I made some scarves and so several unfinished projects before this. So in the past 3.5 years, maybe, I've been knitting to really complete objects and be more mindful of what I'm knitting and how much it's gonna. I'm trying to get the product more than just knitting. Um, and that was one of the things that I really set out to do with my podcast, is to show what I like to see. I don't A lot of makers make really a ton of socks or make all the same shape and style of projects or use all very fine yarn or all mohair. I don't do that in my knitting, so that wouldn't be what I would do. I'm sorry, I just kicked the thing. In my podcast, um, I do high and low patterns. Sometimes I've done patterns that were on the ball band of the yarn. Sometimes I, you know, purchase the pattern. Sometimes it's from a book. The same with the yarn. Sometimes it's Michael's yarn. Sometimes it's, something that I bought from Europe or elsewhere. So I'm an eclectic crafter as far as that goes. I will show you first the artwork sweater. The artwork sweater is by Hinterm Stein. Um, she's such a wonderful designer, and she has a design coming out this week. I saw on Instagram that looks like it's going to be a really nice sweater as well. On this one, I'm using a size 6 needle, and I am using Mountain Meadow wool. It's a 2-ply sport weight. The base is called Cody, and the color is natural. It's made out in Wyoming, which for me was a new. I've never used yarn that was farmed from the states out in Wyoming. I've made a lot of progress on this. I'm going to hold it up. I'm going to have to like sort of move it around. So I would say I'm more than halfway. I'm sort of tall and do like my sweaters a little long, but I've probably got a good 8 inches to go, maybe. In 12 days, 10 days, I'm going to Scotland. So I'm hoping to bring this with me. Um, as I'm working on it, I'm working on the sleeves. I have both sleeves started as well. Um, the sleeves are fiddlier just because of the small circumference in it. I'm old and it fatigues my hands. So I do a couple rows of the bottom, a couple rows of the sleeves to just keep it moving and to keep. I don't want to be stuck with 2 feet of sleeves to do at the end because it'll hurt my hands to do that. So this sweater is raglan, ultimately raglan, but it starts out with this back tab that you do with short rows. So you do the collar, then you do this tab with doing short rows. Um, the sleeves have a design rib with a broken rib detail that radiate from this back tab. In the front, it comes from about your collarbones, I guess. Um, one of the things that I'm hoping this will block out, I saw on a different podcast a woman making something with saddle shoulders, and she said she was getting this puckering. And someone wrote in the comments that's when your row gauge is shorter and then your stitch gauge, and that is usually me. So I'm hoping that this will be able to block out. Also, just now knowing that, maybe I could have done a non-increase row so it wouldn't pucker. So that was a nice find for me. I don't always look at the comments, but I've been seeing so many people talk about mean comments, which I haven't really seen. But so now I sort of look to see if it is happening. I haven't seen it, but I have seen on Instagram where people with larger accounts are saying that they're getting a lot of mean comments. So um, in this sweater, I'm making it white, which it was maybe a mistake because I'm with 3 children all the time. But I wanted this pattern to be the star of it, not so much the color or any kind of variation. The pattern is great. It's so well written. It's very clear and easy to follow. I like this yarn so much. It's very twisty. Although my son, we went out to breakfast earlier today, he said he didn't like it. He felt it and said he didn't like the feel of it. So I disagree. I do like it. It's not rustic, but it's um I don't know how to explain it. It's not scratchy, but it because it's so twisty, it is a little nubbly, almost like a blue clay would sort of be. I've tried it on and I like it. It's not scratchy at all. But fair warning, my son did say he didn't like it. Um, oh, he's a man, was he now? um, I love this, and I'm hoping to finish it in time to bring it to Scotland. I think I've got a fighting chance with 10 or 12 days. I need 2 days to wash and block it. So I don't want to have to bring it in a baggie all wet to Scotland, but I really do want to bring this. So I did have hopes. I mean, I was crazy, I guess. I thought I was going to finish this, another sweater, and a Sophie scarf, or there's another pattern that I like that I might make instead of the Sophie scarf. But I'm going to be lucky if I finish this. So I was thinking everything is going to take less time than it actually does, which is unfortunate for me. Um, my next whip is a Renunculus. Um, I know everyone's making them, and people are probably so bored of hearing about it. Um, I get it now. The pattern is so well written. It's so efficiently written that it's almost confusing because you're reading along and every size is doing the same thing all through the yoke, and you're thinking, how could that even be? And yet it works. And then you get down to in most patterns it's written, do so many stitches and then all these things in parentheses. This pattern's written with a little chart. So once you get used to seeing that instead of the way it's written out normally, it's genius. So when you're breaking for sleeves, they have you count your sleeve, how many you're going to put on the sleeves, the front and the back is different by size. And then the amount of repeats that you do is different by size. I find that genius. This Midori Hirose is the designer, which I'm sure everybody who's heard the word Renunculus knows that. I'm using the size 10 needle, which is what is recommended for every size and every weight, which also seems impossible. And yet, I watched a podcast, and I apologize, I don't remember who it was. Um, it was a woman who owns a yarn shop, but she modeled 6 or 7 ranunculus sweaters in different weights, and she said she used the number 10 for all of them, and they all looked great. They had differences as far as how loose the fabric was or how it hung on her, but they were all great. So this is surprisingly genius of a pattern. I'm using a Berroco Arno, which is 57% cotton and 43% merino. I'm using the colorway 5036. And when I put it in Ravelry, it says that color is Wisteria. I couldn't find that on my ball band as far as that word Wisteria, but on Ravelry it says it's Wisteria. So it's a purple color. I'm doing the 5th size with the smaller neckline, which I had a hard time. I did my I had a hard time getting my needles around that harder thing, and I thought this is never going to fit over my head. And then once I got it on the bigger needles, it worked fine. Um, and I did the short rows in front and back, where I think some people are just doing the back and not the front. Oh, I dropped my ball. Sorry. So this is the colorway. This is the Arno, and I don't know a lot about the construction of yarn, but I think this would be called a blown yarn. It looks like it's got a mesh sort of sleeve that's probably of the cotton, and then the purple, the darker purple, is little pieces of fiber that must be blown in there or somehow manufactured to be in there. I have 6 balls of this, and I think I'm going to have enough yarn to finish this. So I got the entire yoke done. And now I'm doing what would be the raglan sort of increases, is where I am right now. So this is the front, which I did the short rows. So it sort of drops that pattern down a scotch. On the back, it's bigger and drops it down so the neckline fits nicer. The efficiency of this pattern, I really just can't get over it. For what you're doing to create this pattern, it's really not a lot of complicated stitches. It's yarn overs and increasing in a in a different, almost like a cable cast on kind of way, and then knitting them together on the next row. So it looks cabley, but it's not cables. It's really, it's so nice. I am going to try and put this over my head. A clip on the back of my hair, so I'll probably snag it on that. So I am down, I've got the yoke part is all finished. Now I'm at the raglan. Because I know I have a row gauge short problem, I'm adding an extra plain row. I think I've been doing it every fourth. It's a 2 row repeat where you add and don't add, and I think I've been doing an extra um, just to bring this down, so I don't end up having to. What I did with the Paloma and the artwork is I got where I knew I was going to need more length to get to the underarms. So then I was still adding width as well. So I'm trying not to do that here. So, you live and learn. You can teach an old dog new tricks, I guess. Um, but so far, it fits over my head. Everything's good. Um, I had dreams I was going to finish this and bring it to Scotland. I don't think I'm going to now. Depending on how chunky, if I can get away with wearing it without blocking it, because I am going to make it short sleeves. Um, I might bring it in my checked bag, so these big fat number 10 metal needles won't be a problem going through customs. Um, and then maybe I could finish it, get my hotel room and wear it on one of the days towards the end of the week. We'll see. Um, yeah, I don't have. I like this yarn so far. It does seem fuzzy. It picks up a lot of, like debris. My daughter has cats, so here's a cat hair, but my cotton t-shirts pick up cat hair, so I don't know that this is a problem. But it does seem to pick up a lot of little balls of fiber or dust or whatever. Um, and then they're stuck in there. You have to sort of pick them away, and you can't just brush them away. Um, but I don't have any pilling yet. Um, Sometimes even as I'm knitting, because I'm moving it around so much, I could sort of tell if a garment or a yarn is going to start pilling off right off. And so far, this one isn't. So it wasn't pricey yarn. I think I bought this at a local yarn shop here in Florida. It was originally priced at $12. I got it on, I think, 40% off. They had a clearance rack. So I don't know if this is discontinued at the store, discontinued by the factory. I did get it on clearance. Um, and that I completely understand why everyone is making this sweater. It's a really, really nice knit. My other work in progress, and I'm saying that quite liberally because I only have a very, very little bit done, is the Franny Granny Square cardigan. I wanted to make a crocheted sweater, but I love crochet and I don't want this to come out as an insult to crocheters or the crocheting craft. A lot of times crochet garments are a little crafty looking, a little, like if you make something with a granny pattern, which this is, sometimes the holes are so big. It's just not the, it's more kitschy fashion than fine fashion. Although that is changing. I see crochet everywhere now. Even I went to see Downton Abbey when it came out, and I think it was Edith wearing a dress that was made out of like a nice silk or something very flowy, very orange color dress of the style of that time, and it was crocheted. And I thought, well, there you go, crochet having your moment. This pattern is by Hannah Cross, and I am going to use Emma's Drapey Decay. So by using Decay, I think it'll come out a little drapier. This one is called Drapey Decay, and it is 30% silk, 70% merino. This color is called Whisper. So I've used this before in a blanket, and it knits up nice. So I'm it's going to crochet up nice too. This cardigan, and I will put up a picture on the screen. It starts with granny squares and granny triangles, and you make sort of a yoke similar to like what a graduate would wear, or a the Kennedy Center Honors, that ribbon necklace that comes from the back and around, and then you build off of that, and it radiates from that yoke. And the stitches, because you started with a yoke that's coming this way, the stitches are triangular or diagonal. The one I'm making is the longer version, and I'm doing all white, which her pattern model is almost exactly what the one I'm going to make. That it's white all the way down, and then she put colors on the hip so that it starts sort of like the point of it would be at your hip bone, and then it would go down in the front towards the button band and down in the back to an angle. That's the one that I'm doing. So the main cardigan is this Whisper Drapey DK, and then I bought these three colors to be the colored detail at the bottom. Some people in the projects have put the center of some of their granny squares with color, and that looks really pretty. I just I only have, I'll show it to you, but I only have one square done. So this is the color Wink, Navy Blazer, and Harbor are the three colors that I'm gonna put into mine. And so far, this is all I have done. I'm trying to be monogamous to the artwork sweater because I really want to get that done. It started, this is my swatch, which I probably didn't make it as big as it should be, but the recommended needle was this smaller one, of 4.5 millimeter. And it's a little tight. I think if I blocked it, it would come out a little better, but it's just a little tight. So then I'm not getting gauge. Then I moved up to this 8 millimeter needle or hook, number 8, 5 millimeter. And that's the middle between these stitch markers. And that's the one I'm going to go with. And then I used number 10, a 6 millimeter needle. And that's where it's getting too, not crafty, but I don't want big giant holes, especially once this is blocked, they're going to be even bigger. So, and I'm still not getting gauge. So I'm going to do the yoke as planned, and then I might have to fudge around with the amount of granny clusters around the yoke, or do more rows to get to my size. I'm going to try it because for me, crochet is easy, and it's easy to pull out if you've made a mistake, unlike knitting. So I'm not as afraid to, just sort of go forth and try it, and have to rip it back if I don't like it. But I don't know if you can see the difference between that. But even with this big one, which I don't like how gapey that is, I was still not getting gauge. So the way this pattern works is depending on your size. Some of the granny square rounds have a single crochet border or a half double crochet border, which I don't want to do because I think that'll change the tension of how the whole thing drapes, to add one row of more solid stitches. So I'm going to try and not do that. In her pattern sheet says I don't recommend, like she has it all mapped out how many crochet clusters go around this thing, and she says she doesn't recommend going off of that. So I'm going to try and do what she says, and then adjust it with rows going forward. It's a cardigan, so if it has an extra row or 2 rows, it shouldn't hurt anything too much as far as how it fits. So this is my one granny square, which measures 3.5 inches. which is for the size lower than what I'm doing. Well, maybe even a little bit more since I've been pulling on it 3.25 inches, 3 3/4 inches. Um, but anyway, that's my plan. I'm going to just go and do it, and if I have to rip it out, nothing's going to happen to the yarn. It's still going to be here. So each of these squares, takes only a few minutes, and then once you get going on the um, the longer you go, the bigger your squares are going to be until you meet where now you're just going sort of rectangularly. Um, I'm looking forward to this because I haven't made a garment. I made baby garments back in the day, and not a lot because the tension and it's where you sew them up is really so. This is made all in one. There's not a lot of sewing other than these squares. She wants you to use, I think I wrote it on the back of my card, a flat slip. No, I didn't write it. Flat slip stitch to join them. You really, even in the project photos, you can see that join. So I think I'm going to play around with the joins, so I get one that's more flexible. I want every bit of this to sort of have the same tension and flexibility and drape. So if I can achieve that, I'll let you know. And that's really is, it's hard to call this a whip when you have one square, but it will. I have high hopes for this sweater, and I really would love to complete a crocheted garment. Even though I've made so many acquisitions, the only thing I'm allowing myself, at least till the end of the year, is to buy something I need to finish something I'm already planning or in process of, and buy the yarn for the Stephen West knit along. You haven't seen it. We won't see it until October. I'll be on vacation then, so I will be a good week and a half, 2 weeks behind. If I'm not worried about, like, spoiler alert for me, I really want to see ahead because if I don't like it, I don't want to spend time and then be on clue 3 and be like, oh gosh, I don't want to finish this. So I have no problem, starting late and seeing what others have done ahead of me. But I do want to order the yarn before I go. So one of the things that happens to me, and I don't know if it happens to any of you, and I'd love to hear it, if anybody else gets like decision paralysis when it comes to picking colors for this mystery knit along, he's saying 4 complementary color and a mohair dare. And he has so many kits where some of them are low contrast, some of them are high contrast, and each one I like, oh, I like that one, I like that one, oh, and I like that one. Pretty soon I don't know what I like anymore. I like everything, and I start maybe being too critical, and then I don't like anything. So I get literally decision paralysis where I can't decide. So then I thought, well, is there, since it's called musicale, is there a piece of music or an album that reminds me of some colors, and I'll do that. And I haven't bought an album now since CDs went out of season, and that's what, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So I don't even know what I would pick. So I just looked at the Tapestry album, which is very lowly lit. The colors wouldn't lend themselves to a pretty shawl. Then I'm like, well, I like the Beatles. What about Abbey Road? Because I wouldn't want to do one of their more like schizophrenic, psychedelic ones. That just wouldn't suit my personality. I'm like, what about Abbey Road? And they're walking on a road with black and white. I'm like, oh, geez, that's not that nice of a shawl either, to make an Abbey Road shawl. So then I thought, well, what do I like for colors? And so I've settled on sea glass as being sort of the theme. So I'm looking for colors that look like sea glass. So I wrote down, I have a little chart of all the ones that I've been looking at. So I'm looking at one that looks sort of like a green Coke bottle. Back when Coke bottles were glass, they were a light green color. And then like a beer bottle, like a Heineken bottle, that's that nice bottle green color. Cobalt blue is beautiful, beautiful glass. So I'd really like to include that. And then there, now you're sort of in what other color? There are different colors of green. There's amber glass, but with those other colors in a shawl. The sea glass is one thing, but I actually am making a shawl to wear. I'm not sure amber would be the best choice. So I think I'm looking for a variegated for my fourth color that incorporates maybe a little bit of amber or even a little red. My mohair dare, I'm going to do red because it's very small, and he's the way he writes those patterns is you can do them or you cannot do them. So if it's too much red, I could just leave it out. But I would like a little shot of red. I'm going to put up a picture of like my sea glass mood board kind of thing. I went and looked at images to see what colors was I really looking for. So I've looked at way more than this, but I've only written down what I've found from 5 different companies. I had pretty much decided on what I was going to get from Fiber MacGyver. And then I went back, and at least 2 of what I wanted is no longer available, is sold out. So Fiber MacGyver is off the board. So I didn't include that in my little sketch of what I love and what I don't love about the color choices. So I'm hoping that some of you have seen these colors in person and could, in the comments, if you have time to do it, I would love to know your thoughts on what yarn brand would have these 4 colors that I'm looking for, because I really like my garments to be made out of all the same maker and the same base, because I think you do get differences. Um, so Frankie Gregg Fibers is the one, at least I think I'm going to go with. I've bought from them before. Um, so for the Coke bottle color, they have Sky High. The bottle green color is where it's a little bit, I couldn't find one that was exactly what I want, but they have one that's called Army that's a little darker than what I want. But, you know, you got to get what you could get. They have one that's called Cobalt, so that's a done deal as far as the blue. And then they have one that's called Watercolor Green. That's the variegated one. And they have a mohair that's called Brick. Um, I looked at Polka Dot Yarns, which is in Canada, so I hopefully wouldn't have a problem getting it here to the U.S. Their Coke bottle color is more blue than I was really looking for, and that one was called Dusk. Then they have Cactus for the green, Blueberry for the cobalt, and Lake Louise for the variegated. But they didn't have mohair, or they didn't have it in the color red I was looking for. Whenever I had like glass bottles and stuff at home, and that rich like blood red is what I'm looking for. Not fire engine red, like a little bit darker than that, but not so orangey as brick would be. The third company I looked at was Madeline Tosh, which I used Madeline Tosh single ply, whatever it was called, for the 24 Bird Shawl by Helen Stewart when that knit along was on. And I really like that yarn, so I would buy from them again. Again, their Coke bottle color was a little bluer than what I was looking for, and that was called Moon Glow. Their green and blue was called Moorland and Midnight Past, but they're very tonal. There's a little bit more variegation in the color than, it's not as solid as some of the other ones. And then Night and Chili was the variegated, and they have a red called Tart that's sort of the perfect red that I was looking for. I looked at Arcane Fiber. Their palette is brighter probably than I'm looking for, and Sage, and then their green was Jade Express, which is a very, very bright green, and then Juniper, that's almost like a army or hunter green. So I think just because their greens are so off from the color I'm looking for, that I don't think Arcane Fibers is going to be the one I go with. Electric Blue for the Cobalt, and Tranquil Turks for the variegated. And then the last one I looked at was called Bad Sheep. Again, their Coke bottle color sea glass, which that's exactly what I'm looking for, is a little bluer than but their green was called Echo, their cobalt color was called Sapphire, and their variegated was called Sand Dollar. Um, because I really wanted my uh, lighter color to be that greenish Coke bottle. That's why I think I'm going to go with Frankie Gray Fibers. Again, I've ordered from them before. They were very helpful on their website. And I'm thinking of, ordering the army and then say, if you have something that's the color of a Heineken bottle, substitute that. Um, I'm going to order this before I go. When I go to Scotland, I'm going with a knitting tour, and it is the Grocery Girls knitting tour. So I will meet Jody Brown, but I'll have already ordered it by then. So I'll at least talk to her about it, I'm sure. But I love making the Stephen West shawls, even though wearability wise, they're probably not my style, but they're so rewarding and educational, and you learn so much doing it. The pieces are art in the end. So I really want I'm gonna stop my moratorium on buying yarn to buy the Musicale colors, and then I'm gonna stop because for acquisitions I have so many. I literally I it's like a sickness. So one of the things that I went looking for, and I went to the yarn shop. It's called Knit Exclamation Point, and it's a nice shop. It's smallish, but it's so bright in there. And the woman that owns it, Marnie, is so lovely. She's just so pleasant. She leaves you alone to figure out what you want, but she's very helpful. Um, every time I go in there, we have such a lovely conversation. That I just like to go in there. But she carries this Arno vintage, which I is what I bought for these gnomes. So just I I'm sorry, I'm all out of sorts here. The name of the book that I bought with the gnome patterns is The Gnomes of Grindlewood. And the one I'm making for my whole family for Christmas, so I'm making 8 of them, is I'm going to make the worsted version, so it'd be taller like the one in the gray. Is this one in the hat, and I think it's called Nicole. They each have a name with that start with a G, but they sound with an N. Where are you? Sorry, yeah, Nicole is the name of the one that I'm doing. So I went to knit. I had my son with me, and he's a good one to shop with. He doesn't knit or anything, but he was very good in art when he was in high school. So he doesn't mind coming and talking about colors. And so we bought them out almost. We didn't buy them out, but we bought almost one of every color. So I have these 4 colors and these 4 colors. So I won't bore you by saying the names of all these colors, but and these 4 colors. So it's a whole book of gnome patterns. So I know this seems extravagant to buy them, so many, but I probably will make more gnomes. So this is called Vintage Berroco. It was $10.50 a ball at Knit. It's made in Peru, and it is 52% acrylic, 40% wool, and 10% nylon. So I'm definitely making, the noses and the little hands out of the white. Um, my son wanted, I was going to make the gnomes' beards white as they do in the pattern, but he said he thought it should have like these colors. His hair is brown, so he specifically said he wants his gnome to have a brown beard. So I bought a bunch of colors because you need 2 colors for each gnome, one for the body and one for the hat. Um, I wouldn't want to stripe cables just because it won't lay flat as far as the color change. But I could do the brim in one color and then the hat in the rest, and then the tassel in a different color. So I have all these options. So my daughter was here when we got back, and she wants these. She likes the Minnesota Vikings because my ex-husband likes the Minnesota Vikings. So she wants this. So I think either like hat and body or hat and body, and I think her father is going to get whatever Caitlin gets. The my ex will get the other. Um, I did have in my stash, come to find out, um, a few other simpler colors. So even though I had said I was going to go get more Christmassy kids colors, I'm going to use this up because it's just been sitting around. My microphone is on one of the walls. I pulled it, so I have a yellow, and then I have a light purple too. So the kids are going to get these little bit more pastel-y colors, and they're going to get, everyone's getting the same yarn, except maybe my son, my middle son. Um, this I found when I was home is from his baby blankets. So this ball of yarn is woolly, so it's the same composition. I think Woolies now is 80% acrylic and 20%, but it used to be more wool. So I think this one was 70-30 or 60-40. And now it's either 70-30 or 80-20. I'm not sure. But this yarn was so pretty. It's white, but it's got these beautiful speckles. So I think I'm going to try and incorporate this one into my middle son's, just because this was his baby blanket. And it in feel and gauge, I think it'll match enough that his won't look out of place as far as other. And if I have more, maybe other people can get that, because I really don't want to have bits and bobs of a gazillion colors of the same yarn. While I was, so we went from knit, where I bought all of that. We got some lunch, and then we went to Four Pearls, which is like an hour and 15 minutes from knit to Four Pearls, according to like Google Maps. So we went there, and I got the yarn for the cardigan that I showed. I got this yarn. I'm going to make a Maxine water bottle cover, which I have one for myself and I made one for my daughter. So I'm going to make one for my older son's girlfriend. And her main color, I think it was called Dewdrop, but the tag is ripped. But you can see a W and drop, so I think it was called Dewdrop. And then she likes sage as the color, but I didn't find a sage that I wanted. This is a little tonal, so I didn't want the body to be this, because it's color work. I didn't want the body to be too tonal. So I'm going to do the color work in more of the green palette. So Cherry Merlot, Later Gator, Navy Blazer, which was one of the colors that I got for mine, and Clean the Air. And this is their 75% merino, 25% nylon, Simply Spectacular Smalls. So I got just the minis for her color work. I also bought, while I was there, I want to make a second crochet cardigan, and this is Labiana Me. I think it's a sock yarn. Merino Super Sock, 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon in the color Confetti Cake. So I bought 6, I think, of these, or maybe 7. And I'm going to make another cardigan. While I was there, I was telling one of the workers that I wanted to make a crochet cardigan, and she showed me a sample of one that they had, and it was called the squared off cardigan. So it starts with a square, similar to those hexagonal sweaters that I've been seeing. Squared Up Jacket by Earth Yarns was the name of it. The pictures online, I didn't notice it in the sample that she showed me, but there was all, when you're shopping and there's all people around, there's a lot going on, so I maybe just didn't notice it. But on the project pictures, it looks like the sleeves sort of bell out, like, and the one that's like the model picture of the pattern, it stops about here. And it's wide, like sort of a bell sleeve, and I wouldn't want that. So I could probably find a way to decrease, because by the time you get past where the square would have ended, you're just doing granny stripes. So there, you can decrease it, or I could put a cuff at the end to pull it in, because I definitely wouldn't want a cardigan with it, just flopping around like a bathrobe. Um, I've always wanted to make something with the La Bien-Aimée yarn. The color palettes are just so pretty. It was my birthday a couple weeks ago, so this is a present from me to me, and I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna start anyway with that squared off cardigan. Um, and again, with crochet, I don't mind pulling it out because it doesn't take me as long to do it. And you can stop pulling whenever you want, and just continue from there. It's not, and then put your stitches back on and make sure they're not twisted. So um, the ease of redoing something in crochet is just so much easier. So I spent so much money on at Four Pearls, especially, that to the fact that on the way out, my son was like, "Did she say?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I don't want to talk about it." Um, I also bought, while I was there, a lotion bar that's made in Florida. It just says hand poured in Florida, small batch. The one it's called Little Bee Lotion Bar, and I got the lime lavender, and it hold it up like you could smell it. Got these two little sheep in it. I don't have dry hands necessarily, and I don't use a lot of cream when I'm knitting or crocheting because I just don't want any kind of lotion to stain it. But I do get really dry elbows, like just the one little patch at the bottom of my elbow. So I've been taking this and, like, on the back side of it, just sort of, rubbing my elbow on it. So it's very creamy once you're touching it, but it holds its shape into this cake. So so far I've really liked it. And um let's see, it's made out of pure beeswax, coconut oil, almond oil infused with organically certified calendula flowers, and essential oils. So the essential oils must be the lime smell that you get. It's a little aftershavy smelling. They had other ones that were very florally, which the woman that was helping me and my son both seemed to like the rose one better, but I liked that sharp citrusy smell. Um, the other acquisition, and I ordered these from Amazon, is I bought two of these books to make these little origami, or amigurumi, little, they're iconic women. So each one of these dolls is a woman in history. I am Swedish. My grandmother was born in America, but her brothers and sisters were born in Sweden. Her parents were born in Sweden. So in Sweden, around Christmas time, at the beginning of the month, I'm not sure the day, I think it's the 12th, is St. Lucia Day. And there's a little, um, the girls dress up in a white dress with a red sash, and they wear like a garland or a wreath of candles on their heads. So I want to make one of these St. Lucia dolls for my granddaughters and my grandson. I mean, maybe I'll make a little boy one for him. Although the ceremony in Sweden just seems to involve the girls, the boys are left out of it. So I think the one I want to make is in this one. I can, this doll with the white dress is the one of the first known mathematician from Egypt. I forgot, Hatafi or Hatafi. When I start making it, I'll look it up and tell you. But I think I'm going to make basically her hair and try to make a crown of candles, and then a lot of them. This one here is Mary Shelley. She's carrying the little Frankenstein doll. Her dress would lend itself with a little lacy collar. If I did it all in white. This book has Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she has the same kind of lacy collar. So I'm going to pick and choose with the dresses and the hairstyles and try and make, by December 12th, one of these. These are fussier than any amigurumi thing I've ever made. But I made, I think you might be able to see them from the back. I made these little light Christmas light bulb things last year, and they took an hour each. So this I should be able to get done in a day or two. So it's definitely going to be in my plan for Christmas. One of the things I did with my children and doing with my grandchildren is making little parties. Like everything doesn't have to be a big expensive celebration, but if there's like St. Joseph's Day, you get Zeppeli, or St. Patrick's Day, and we would always buy my mom's shamrocks because she was Irish. Cinco de Mayo, it's grabbing other people's culture. I'm not Mexican, but just to have a little celebration around the dinner table, not a big deal, but it's a memory. Even like with my kids, we used to make paper bag puppets of groundhogs and watch that groundhog movie and do the little song with our puppets, and it's good memories for the kids. So I'm hoping to build a Swedish one, since I am Swedish, with this St. Lucia doll. So I already have a lot of colors, and really I only need white and a flesh color and then yellow. The girl in the St. Lucia that you ever see, they're very blonde. I think in Sweden the people are very blonde, although my grandmother was redheaded. Um, anyway, I'm going to make that. Um, Completely as an aside, my grandmother was redheaded and she was a twin. They say that runs in families, but I don't know how true that is. I know they always said my grandmother and her sister were identical twins, but I'm not, you know, not positive that it's actually true. But she is one of four sets of twins. My great grandmother had 14 children, and eight of them were twins. But my grandmother and her sister were the only ones that lived to adulthood of all the twins. I know my grandmother had other siblings, but they weren't the twins. Completely aside, unnecessary information, but since I just said my grandmother's, just made me think of it. And then the last thing is the six things. He wasn't one of my six things because I had written these down, but Robert Redford, what a gentleman. And he's done so much for the movie industry with that Sundance Festival, and everybody that has memories of him that's posting them on Instagram or Facebook seem to have lovely stories about this man, that he seemed to be a gentleman and a truly kind man. So rest in peace, Robert Redford. The first of the six things I actually wrote down was a movie I watched with Natalie Dormer, and she was in The Tudors and in Game of Thrones, and she usually plays somebody very feisty. But the movie was called Audrey's Children, and it's about a doctor, an oncologist for children's cancer in Philadelphia. Maybe it looked by the fashion like maybe in the 60s and 70s. And she was so kind and did such hard work. I don't want to spoil it if anybody watches the movie, but her philanthropy lives on today. Um, and it was a very, very good movie. So that Natalie Dormer usually does play maybe a little bit of a freshie, it's very, very spicy. Um, because she was playing a real person, she was just a joy. She would just walk down the halls being nice to everyone in the hallways of this hospital. So that was just such a good movie. My next thing is, I think things end up being sort of a fad, and once you see one, you see 100 more of the same kind of post. But I have been seeing a post for this little crocheted or knitted tea bag, and I'm a tea drinker, so I think I want to make a tea bag. And I've seen a few patterns, and I'll try to pull up an image of it and put it up here. But for an hour, and I think with this, if you can make one of them in, I've got tea brown already in my stash here, so I would love to make one of those crafted tea bags. My next one is a woman that I watch on Instagram, and she does I've seen a couple different series that she does where she picks her colors or the design of what she's doing with a bingo um, ball puller thing. Her name is Crochet by Chris, and both the Crochet and Chris are with K's. and there's a dot, so it's crochet dot by dot Chris, and she's so funny, and she highly edited, so there's a lot of like jumping around kind of. So if that, I know some people are triggered by too much like flashing, and there this one might, because there's she does edit a lot. um the one that she's doing now is she's picking a crocheted flower, and then the petal colors, and then the inside petal colors. I think each one has a couple of colors involved. And she's making a bouquet. So she's doing it around wire, which I've never crocheted anything like that. And probably unlikely to ever crochet like that. She made a sweater with like a flowered granny square kind of thing, with the same thing inside of the petal, outside of the petal, background. Um, but she's funny. Yeah, for it's a low investment to watch her. It's only a minute or two, and it's so she's delightful. Number four is I took my grandchildren. My daughter came too, um, for just a walk around the building, and we ended up going a little away from the building, and there's little ponds out on the other side of one of the buildings, and there was an alligator. I guess it's there, and it was small last year, and I hadn't seen it this year yet, but it was on the other side of the pond from where we were, so we weren't in any danger with the kids. um, but it saw us and got off, off the bank, came in the water, and swam straight at us, which is unlike usually an alligator. As much as you hear like terrible stories, if they do see you, they go in the other direction. They really don't want anything to do with a human. And this alligator was, big enough to bite you, but not big enough to eat you, and it came and it stopped in the water 10 or 15 feet from the bank, and then we were up the bank, like still basically at the sidewalk, and just was looking at us. So the kids got a really really good look of an alligator swimming and an alligator looking at them. We weren't in any kind of danger. We were at the sidewalk, and the alligator, I think, can has a burst of speed for a little bit, but uphill. And we would have, even me, and I'm slow as molasses, would have been able to run away before it got anywhere near us. um, the fifth one is a series, and I think I'm late to the party, but I love the books Anne of Green Gables, and this is on Netflix, and it was called Anne with an E. um, I'm on season two now, which is completely off book. I've read the Lucy Maud Montgomery books. I saw the probably the best of the adaptations for television was the one from '85 with Megan Follows and Colleen Dewhurst and Richard Farnsworth. And I didn't think anything could beat that. And I wouldn't say this beats it, but and I don't know their names. The woman that plays Matthew, or the woman that plays Merle, and the man that plays Matthew are so good. The girl that plays Anna, I'm maybe a little on the fence with. She's a good actress, but just for me, she's not Anne. Um, but it's so good, and the crochet in it, and the knits are so nice. Like every once in a while, somebody will go by with a sweater, and you're like, oh, look at that, like a Gansey style sweater. Or the woman, if you know the stories, the woman that plays Mrs. Lind, which is a neighbor, um, has this capelet that I'm obsessed with. It's completely old fashioned. It's been out of style for 150 years, and yet I think I want to make one. Um, the one I saw, I watched one last night, and they were doing a play, like the town Christmas play, and the costumes that they had were a crocheted hood with like seemed like it was a bird, a cape, to make it look like a bird, attached to it. And it's like, just as a knitter and crocheter, I often, when I'm watching television, will see something and be like, I wish they would, zero in on that. I'd like to see how that's constructed, although I would break up the flow of the story, I guess. Um, and my sixth thing is just the I don't know if it's doing the podcast or just the amount that I've been being able to complete. I can't stop thinking of what more I want to make. I mean, I think my project list will outspan my time on Earth. especially because I keep adding to it. But I've said to my daughter, sometimes the fun's in the planning, the fun's in the deciding what you're going to make and deciding what colors and shopping for the colors is as much fun as the doing, you know. And it makes, that's why I like to keep something always, you know, the in the round knitting that I don't have to think about, and then something that's still in the planning stages, something that's, you know, in the yoke or the color work, or, you know, so there's something complicated and fun to work on, something easy to work on, something to plan, is how I sort of do my knitting, not career, whatever you would call it. Um, my knitting story or crafting story is to keep several projects on the go at one time. I have too many at the moment. I am trying to restrain myself, but I will always have several. And lately, I just have so many ideas, I can't stop myself. And with that, that's my 6 things. I hope you have more than 6 things that make you happy and intrigued and thoughtful, and, you know, helps your day be finer. And with that, I will keep you in my heart of stitches. Thank you.